Welcome back to DAP Build. Today I'm continuing progress, obviously, of my Porsche 911 Turbo Replica. We're finishing off with the tunnel, so everything now is removed which needs to be removed, except the shifter linkage, which stupidly I really should have removed the block that it was the very back here, and I can't do that with it lying down. It's just too much of a nightmare. So I've got to lift this thing up, remove the block, then I can remove the shifter linkage, clean up the rest of it. So more or less there is still a bit of scrubbing to be done inside the cavity here. Clean up the actual shifter, investigate about the potential bushing that I believe should be present for that shifter linkage. So where the, basically where it rests, it's just metal to metal, which just doesn't seem right to me. So there was a plastic piece, bits of remaining plastic piece on the rod, and I'm just going to find out if there is actually something to go in there. So I do want everything in this tunnel sorted before I seal it up once again and potentially forever. I do have some tools coming to fix that stupid cutout. So basically smoothing that over, the shifter rod will come out. Hopefully the rust converter turns up and I'll go throughout this entire thing. I've already done a bit of a cleanup. It is reasonably clean and not too dusty at all, actually. It's quite nice. And then once that's done, potentially wax all the entire thing, and then we're up to the part of questioning with regards to sealing this thing back up, but that's another episode. Let's crack on. There are a few things I really should have rectified before getting to this point in time, but anyway, so hopefully this is just gonna come straight off. This wire is pretty corroded on the other side. It seems to be the same case here. Come on. It's kind of interesting though, there's only one bracket which secures the entire thing. So you got the one up here, and then down here it simply just rests on the transmission linkage part. So I'm gonna go at this. Not getting reused, it's too old. Get some new wire in there. If I can get it out, far out. This is, it's interesting this is the only thing securing this, but I mean it doesn't need much. Come on. Yeah, this is so caked with rust now. It wasn't that bad before, but you know, that's what happens. There we go. And two. Where's the bit that actually disconnects it? Three. How's it come out? Don't tell me it's a... What is that? Huh? So we finally have the coupler removed. Interesting little nut and bolt assembly, but that's finally done. The shifter linkage also removed, and I'll say one thing, that if this is meant to be straight, then yeah, I don't think so. I don't believe it is meant to be straight. I just don't understand why it needs to take as many turns and bends as it does. Look into whether that needs to be straight or not, but on to cleaning out the rest of the cavity now. So once again, steel wool scrubber, goes through the bottom. A bit more crud came out, weirdly enough, but I think most of that was off the coupler. There was a ton of dirt and debris over that. So I'll just do a bit more of a spruce up in there. Blow the actual cavity out once more, so just compressed air through the lines, which I haven't done yet actually. I've got to do that. And yeah, then once the rust converter comes, we'll put that through, and I suppose we're going to be waiting a couple of days for that to set. I think it's 24 hours, so don't know how we'll go there, but yeah. One thing that has turned up, which I was waiting for and did need in order to finish this off, is of course a hammer set. And we're going to do some really great things with this, including using the English language nicely. I think I'm a day in error there. So if you're not exactly familiar with these sort of tools, this is what they refer to as the dolly, and this is of course the hammer. Nothing new there. We're going to be putting this against the back section, so you're bracing where you want the metal to actually curve to, and then we're basically going to tap inside to push the metal out. I'm hoping I've got enough clearance because this is in the way slightly, and where it is right next to this bracket too. So I'm hoping I can actually get in there enough to be able to do this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but at the same time too, I'd like to be as clean as possible. When it's welded up, the gaps need to be as close together as they can be. It's already a massive cut. It's a really thick cut, like they've used a grinding disc opposed to a cutting disc. But anyway, I just need to hammer it out as flat as possible, and then that can be welded up and another job done. So I decided to simply cut it out. It was just not working for me. It's a new day, and I am not really feeling great. So it's going to be a bit of a slow one for the rest of this episode, I reckon. It's only midweek, so I'm not doing too badly. But I'm slowly getting to a crawl in that what I can actually do is limited by what I have. And of course, my spray gun is not turned up, my rust converter is not turned up, the wax oil I cannot even find within Australia at this point, and it's on back order from the suppliers who can get it. If I order it from overseas directly, it's going to cost more than I'm prepared to spend. So I'm slowly getting to a point whereby I can't do anything, and this is a problem because number one, I want to keep this train moving and finish this tunnel. I want this done. Another thing I've decided to do is I have bought some new hardline fuel hose. I was originally going to run an external line simply because of number one, ease, number two, replacement in the future, etc. I've decided though to simply replace the existing one inside the chassis. Safety wise, it makes more sense, but beyond that, this car was a 70s car, so let's say for argument's sake 1970, just makes it a nice easy number. The car itself is 50 plus years old, so that fuel line's been in there for 50 years, only to really be a problem now, and mostly from resting petrol. So I'm going to run a hard line internal to the frame, job be done, and that way I don't have to worry about it. 50 years, yeah, I doubt I'm going to live that much longer. We'll see. But anyway, moving on. So all I can really do for now is just clean up a bit more of the inside of the channel here. Back to the scrubbing brush, a bit more tearing down, and I've got no idea what after that. So I don't know. Figure something out. end of the week and I'm not really great for a couple of reasons. Number one, my head is just absolutely spinning. I've got next to zero balance. But beyond that, I discovered that, I don't know how I have not seen this earlier. Again, this car has thrown another thing at me, and this time it would seem that it's been in a front-end collision at some point. Minor or questionable. I mean, it's hard to tell. But the fact of the matter is that this area right here, the original, I'd say this beam's been replaced, this front axle beam's been replaced, because I believe from the looks of it that it's had a hit to the side and it's pushed this section in. The metal is a bit squiggly in some areas. The most obvious factor though is this actual line, and if we, I will bring you in closer in a second, but if we actually look at it, it's not straight cut. It should have a nice crisp, clean line to which the beam then meets up to the axle. This is kind of billowing out and pushing the beam further forward, which is why I could never get the front end to mate properly, because it wouldn't be flush. It was kind of sitting at a bit of a ridge and then rocking or pivoting. So that means, and I have kind of questioned this with a couple of people, there's two options here. I will briefly go over them. The first one is to more or less have this pulled out. So weld onto this section here and then use a slide hammer in order to pull that section of metal flush. It's a possibility. Or, and the problem is that this next or is why I've got to do this next part. Replace this entire front piece, which you can buy these parts for. It's not cheap. I mean, at the end of the day, I've saved myself money by doing this, but then I've got to replace this. For me to replace this is way out of my league, because it does require a lot of measurements in order to be accurate. And the reason, wow, I cannot talk today. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm just about to do some measurements. I did some brief ones the other day. I ended up taking yesterday off. I was kind of over this after I discovered this issue. I think, and I believe, that this entire front piece from the back axle is 5 millimeters out one direction. This way, 5 millimeters closer that way than that way. Just about to do another lot of measurements, and I was supposed to bring a pen and paper in here, which I did not do, but I've got it recorded so I can always go back and have a look. But if it's 5 mil out, it means I can't simply just fix this, because something's wrong. It might not necessarily be this. It might be the frame, it might be the rear axle section. Something in amongst here could have been shifted. It may explain why the floor pans are replaced. It's kind of weird though, because if this was replaced and the floor pans are replaced, the beam axle was replaced, then this has happened again later, this front crumple, because you wouldn't replace this entire front section to then, I don't know. This is the problem of buying used cars like this, you just don't know the history. Anyway, so I'm going to grab a tape measure. I'm going to do a lot of measurements. Speaking to a friend of mine who knows a thing or two about taking measurements, and nothing dirty there. I'm going to try and measure up as many points as possible to see where the difference in tolerance is. And it's not going to be easy. I'd rather do this top side. I can't. I've got to work with what I have, so I'm just going to dig into it and see what I find. Just cutting in here, this is actually a secondary edit. I'm wrapping up this episode here. There will be a part 2 to this where I do go over the measurements of the chassis. It's really thrilling, trust me, it's worth watching. But anyway, that's going to do it today, guys. Thank you very much for joining me. As always, like, subscribe, comment below, etc. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbour that if he's struggling to actually stand up like I am right now, might be a good idea to sit down. Anyway, guys, until next time, cheers.